Welcome to mini lesson 9.5 special effects. In this mini lesson we're going to look at some of the basic special effects of Scratch. They are already pre-built into the software development kit for Scratch, so it's going to make your life pretty easy to actually apply these special effects and to have some pretty cool outcomes on your sprites and in your programs. We're only going to look at 3 special effects. Technically I have size right here. It's not really a special effect by definition when you look at the blocks. However, we'll consider it a special effect for this video just because you're manipulating the way the image appears based upon its size. So I'll count it as a special effects, but I guess if you look at the details, it couldn't really be considered a special effect since it's not in the special effect blocks. Nonetheless, we're just going to look at 3 of these in addition to size, and once you play around with these 3 and the size, you'll notice that you can pretty much manipulate any of the other special effects out there. I think there's only like 4 other ones. Just so you know, size operates a little bit differently than the ghost and pixelate, and I'll explain those in details. Okay, so let's look at the program. When you run the program, after you complete programming it, you should see results like this. You'll have 4 sprites, there's nothing on the stage, and the 4 sprites will all, in a forever loop, cycle in and out of the different special effects. You can see that we have the ghost effect up here in quadrant 2, quadrant 3, we have the cat getting the whirl effect. You can see their names down here also. Over here in quadrant 4 is the, I guess, what's supposed to be looking like a Tyrannosaurus Rex getting pixelated. Then up here in quadrant 1 is a dinosaur, stegosaurus thing, and its size is changing based upon the size block. Okay, and what's happening in the code, it's kind of a similar pattern, is we send it to an XY coordinate, we clear the graphic effects. When we clear the graphic effects, so whenever we stop the program, you'll notice that the size is still large, or sometimes the special effects are still, set for the programs. When we click on the start flag, this way it ensures that the sprites will start over with no special effects being applied to it. It's just a good habit to get into, especially if you don't want the special effects to be present whenever a program starts or pauses or anything of that nature. Let's see, the program is going to have a forever loop, and inside of it will be 2 repeat blocks. Nested inside them will be a looks block that changes the special effect, and you can change the special effect by clicking on this drop down arrow and choose one of the different ones. And how many are there? Yeah, there's 7. And then we change it by a positive value or change it by a negative value. On the special effects, as you increase the value from, say, 0 or whatever, we're starting at 1 here. Whenever you change the value and increase it, that applies the effect. And when you decrease the value, it removes the effect being applied to the sprite. That holds true for pixelate and ghost. And if you want to think about it, you can almost say that this is going from, say, 0% to 100% being applied. However, that's not really true. It's just kind of a good frame of mind to think about when you're looking at these, because when you apply the whirl effect, for example, you can go way beyond 100% and the effect will still be applied. However, ghost, once you get to 100, the image is gone, so it's kind of pointless to keep changing the ghost value on the sprite since it's already disappeared. And the same with pixelate. Once you apply the pixelate beyond, I can't remember the exact value, but if you get to 100, you're not going to be able to recognize the shape and it's pretty much gone. Now the size is a little bit different. Size, we use a block called set size to 100%. What this will do is it will get the block, or excuse me, get the sprite and set it to its original value, whatever the dimensions were. For example, in this sprite, its original dimensions are 143 by 111. Okay, so it's going to set that size to 100% of that value. And then in the forever block, we'll change the size by increasing it. So 1 times 100 means we're going to increase this by 100%. So technically it's going to get to about 200% of its original size. And then on the second repeat block, we're going to change the size by -1, which will reduce it down from the value of 200 all the way back to 100% of its original size. Now if we look at the costume right here, you'll notice on the costume the sprite dimensions aren't changing. And this is pretty important because what you're seeing is we're just changing the visual effect of the sprite on the stage as it's the program is running as it's being drawn to the screen. We're not worried about the actual true image size. And this is really important because if I was to come in and start adjusting the image size and say, where's a good tool that does that? Let's grow it. I think that'll apply. So if I click on grow, you notice right here the image size is increasing, and we are in vector mode, so we got pretty good clarity on our image. But now the image size has changed. If I want to go back, I'd have to go and adjust it. Okay, and that could cause some issues, especially if you were to have a bitmap. If I was to convert to bitmap here and do the same thing, if I increase its value, and then let's say I want to decrease its value and come back, uh-oh, look at the image, it's all messed up. Its dimensions are messed up. It's got a lot of the picture, or a lot of the pixels got truncated or cut off from expanding it beyond the actual parameters of the drawing area here. So I'm in a bad situation because now I have to go back and get the original image. By using this piece of code right here, we can adjust the image size without having to affect the actual original image size, so that way we would have a situation like that on our hands. Now I'm not going to save this because that is not what I want. However, I just wanted you to see what could happen if you were to change the image size, and that changing the size value on the screen is a good way to go about increasing or decreasing the size of your sprite if you want it to, get larger or smaller within your program. Okay, let's dive into the curriculum here and check out any sort of details I might have missed in the video. If I was you, I'd pause the video and go ahead and read through these. There's a lot more details that I'm going to cover here on the video, just since it's there, and making sure you read is a pretty important skill to have in the future. Let's see, special effects, they are the visual adjustment of an image or sound that alters its properties. This is a term that you should just get used to seeing, and just understanding its definition will help you in the long run, especially if you're communicating with somebody that works in this type of industry. All the special effects that we'll be looking at are located underneath the looks. Now there's other ways to go about this. For right now, we're just going to worry about everything that's in the looks. And then we have the whirl effect. That was the first one we applied, and it's going to twist the sprite in the center location, the sprite center, and it's just going to twist the sprite around that point. You'll notice as you apply the whirl effect and keep increasing it, the sprite will get pretty whirly, if you will say. However, there'll be a point where the whirl effect won't apply anymore, and the outer edges of the sprite won't get affected by the whirl. Okay, it takes a while to get there, but once you get there, you'll notice what happens, and pretty much at that point in time, you're kind of killing your program with the amount of memory it's using to run the program, so you might want to turn that off or pause it or reset its value or something. Next, pixelate effect. Pixelate also is another special effect that's going to reach a point where you just get beyond anything really being noticeable about the effect being applied. So you find a good range of changing the sprite to a point of pixelation that you're happy with, and then make sure you turn it off. You don't want to constantly keep applying the effect, because if you're trying to run a pretty complex program, it will slow your program down. Ghost effect. This one is really important because you'll use this quite a bit, and we're going to use this in our next program. It's actually one of the key features to make our next program operate. I like Ghost because it's pretty cut and dry. If you're at 0, the image is fully not transparent, it's fully visible, and if you get to 100 on the value of the ghost effects, then the sprite is fully transparent. So I like this one because you can look at it as a percent from 0, which means no transparency, to 100%, which is full transparency. And just so you know, what we're doing technically is we're changing the alpha channel on this sprite's image. We don't get into those details here in Scratch, but if you were to use Unity or some of the other art programs, you would see something where it says, hey, adjust the alpha channel, and that's what adjusts the transparency of the images. Let's see, size effect. This one's a little bit different because we're increasing the size of the sprite by 1%. As opposed to just changing the special effect. And you can just set the size to a static value to get it where you want it to be, or you can put inside the loop like we did, where you can see the effect being applied as it changes. I like using the change size effect on a sprite, especially if I want to kind of give a special effect if it's growing or shrinking. And it allows me to avoid the situation of having to go back and resize the sprite or having to string together a series of costumes to create a simple animation of increasing and decreasing. So it makes things a little bit easier. And I think that's it. So you'll need this file called Special Effects, and you'll be programming these 4 sprites. Good luck, and we'll see you in Unit 10, which will put all this together into a project.